All right, so get this, listeners. Today we're diving into some seriously cool research. It's about using AI to, change how we diagnose breast cancer. And the research paper we're looking at, just the title is a mouthful.
I know, right?
It's called, get this, Integrating AI for Human-Centric Breast Cancer Diagnostics, a multi-scale and multi-view SWIN transformer framework.
Wow.
I know. But you know what? It's actually way more interesting than it sounds, and we've got some heavy hitters in the research world behind this. We've got Farnoosh Bayatmaku, Reza Talai, Malada Mir-Tutunsian, and Arash Mohammadi.
Yeah, all from like Concordia University and Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. So it's legit stuff.
Yeah, so this is some serious research.
Yeah, and what's really cool here is that they're, not trying to replace radiologists with AI. They're trying to make diagnosis more accurate and reliable by, using AI to help radiologists.
Right. Okay, so let's back up for a sec, though. Why is this such a big deal? Like, why is this research so important?
Well, I think we all know that with breast cancer, early detection is key.
Absolutely.
The earlier you find it, the better the chances of successful treatment. And mammograms are, the main tool we have for that. So this research is all about making mammograms even better.
Right, mammograms, those x-rays of the breast. But aren't computers already helping with that?
Yeah, they are, but those older systems, they're called CAD systems, and they
Mm-hmm.
have limitations. Like, a lot of times they need, like, a perfect image, centered right on the tumor. And that's not always realistic. Plus, sometimes you don't have all the views of the breast you need. You're missing some of the images.
And that can really throw them off.
Exactly.
So this new research is trying to, fix those problems.
Exactly. They've developed this AI framework called MSMV-Swin, which is, just a fancy way of saying it's a super smart system designed to analyze mammograms in a more human-like way.
Oh, okay, so when you say human-like, what do you mean? Does it have, tiny robot eyes scanning the images?
Well, not quite. But it does use something called the SWIN transformer, which is, a type of AI model that's really good at understanding patterns in images. So, like, imagine you're, looking for something specific in a really cluttered room. You don't just stare blankly at the whole room, right?
Yeah.
You scan around, you zoom in on areas that catch your eye, and then you compare those details to, the overall picture of the room.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this SWIN transformer does with mammograms.
So it's not just looking for a tumor in, isolation. It's looking at the whole breast? Like, it's considering the whole context.
Exactly. Exactly. It can zoom in on those suspicious areas, but it can also see how those areas, relate to everything else in the
Yeah.
breast. And here's the really cool part. It uses something called the segment anything model, which is often called SAM. And what SAM does is it isolates the breast in the image. So it's kind of like a radiologist mentally blocking out the irrelevant parts of the X-ray.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like the AI is, learning to think like a radiologist.
Yeah, it really is.
That's pretty wild.
It is. And that's, I think, a big part of what makes this research so promising. It's not just about, raw computing power. It's about actually mimicking the way human experts approach the problem.
Now, I remember earlier you mentioned missing views being a problem. Sometimes we don't have all the mammogram images. How does this MSMV-Swin deal with that?
Right. So think of it like trying to put together a puzzle, but you're missing some of the pieces.
That's pretty hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to see the full picture, right?
Yeah.
And the older systems really struggled with this. But MSMV-Swin uses this clever trick called feature zero padding. And what that means is it basically fills in those gaps with neutral information so the missing view doesn't throw off the diagnosis.
So instead of getting confused, it's like it knows there's a piece missing and it just adjusts accordingly.
Exactly.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah, and it's a big step towards making this kind of AI actually useful in the real world, right? Because in a busy clinic, you don't always have all the images.
Right, yeah. Okay, so this all sounds amazing in theory, but how well does it actually work?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The researchers tested MSMV-Swin using a huge data set of mammograms. It's called the CBIS-DDSM dataset. It's like a massive library of mammograms with all the details and diagnoses attached.
Oh, wow. So they basically fed this whole data set to the AI and said, figure it out.
Exactly. They used part of the data set to train the system, basically teaching it to recognize patterns and make diagnoses based on, thousands of examples. And then they used a completely separate part of the data set stuff the AI had never seen before, to test how well it could diagnose new cases.
Like a final exam for the AI.
Exactly.
So how did it do?
It aced it. Not only did it outperform all the existing models in terms of accuracy, it was particularly good at dealing with those missing views. We're talking a significant improvement in how we analyze mammograms.
Wow. Okay, hold on. So you say it's more accurate, but how much more accurate? Like, give me some numbers.
Okay, yeah. So in cases with all the views, MSMV-Swin achieved 80.32% accuracy.
Oh, okay.
But here's the really amazing part. Even when a view is missing, the accuracy only drops slightly to 77.4%.
Wow. So even with missing information, it's still incredibly accurate.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
This could be huge.
It could be, yeah.
But before we get too carried away, I mean, this is still research, right? We're not going to see this in hospitals tomorrow.
Right, absolutely. This is still early stage research. And we need, more testing, more development before it's ready for doctors to use every day. But, I mean, the potential here is huge.
Okay. So not ready for the clinic just yet, but definitely something to keep an eye on. So we're going to be back in part 2 to dig a little deeper into the, technical bits of how this all works.
Definitely. And we'll talk about what this means for the future of breast cancer diagnosis and how this kind of AI might, change healthcare overall.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you then.
So we're back and ready to, dig a little deeper into this groundbreaking AI system for breast cancer diagnosis. If you remember from last time, this MSMV-Swin thing is designed to work, more like a human radiologist. It considers, the whole picture, not just little spots on a mammogram. And it can even, deal with those cases where you're missing a mammogram image.
Right. And, one of the things that makes this system so unique is that segment anything model, or SAM, that we were talking about before. It's almost like, giving the AI a set of glasses,
Yeah.
that highlight the most important parts of the image.
So instead of getting bogged down in all the, noise of a mammogram, it can just focus in on the breast tissue.
Yeah, precisely. Imagine trying to find, a specific book on a shelf full of tons of books.
Yeah.
It would be a lot easier if someone could just be like, okay, it's in this section over here, right?
Right.
And that's what SAM does for MSMV-Swin. It helps the AI, focus on the important part.
Right. Okay. It's like giving the AI a little human guidance, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And this is really helpful because as we talked about, the old CAD systems, they would struggle if an image wasn't perfectly centered or focused on the tumor.
Right.
They couldn't see the forest for the trees.
Right. So this MSMV-Swin, with Sam's help, it can see, the trees and the forest. It gets the whole picture.
Yes, exactly. And going back to that multi-scale analysis we were talking about before, that's another piece of this that makes this system so impressive. It's like the AI can zoom in and out, getting both the, the close-up view and the big picture.
So it can see the tiny details that might be, a problem, but it also understands how those details fit into the whole breast.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what human radiologists do, right? They zoom in on areas of concern, but they're also, considering the whole image.
Okay, so it's not just about seeing a red flag,
Yeah.
It's about understanding what's going on, the whole story that the mammogram's telling. But all this complex analysis, that must take, a lot of computing power, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
AI models are computationally intensive, we call them. But luckily, computing technology has come a long way. What used to take days, even weeks to process can now be done in a fraction of the time.
So the technology is finally catching up to what we want to do.
Exactly.
That's great. But I'm still a little fuzzy on that feature zero padding thing. How does that actually work?
Okay, so imagine you're a detective and you're trying to solve a case, but, you're missing some evidence. Let's say you're missing security camera footage from a key moment.
Oh, yeah.
You can still try to piece together what happened, but it's a lot harder.
Right. You're working with an incomplete picture, and that can, lead to the wrong conclusion.
Exactly. And that's what it was like for traditional CAD systems when they encountered, a missing view. They were only working with part of the story.
Right.
Which obviously isn't ideal.
No. So this feature zero padding is basically saying, hey, we know what piece is missing, so, don't freak out. Just work with what you have.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Instead of trying to make up data, which would probably introduce errors, it just, acknowledges the missing piece. It says, I know something's missing here, but I can still, figure things out based on what I do have.
And that's so much more realistic considering that, you don't always have all the images.
Exactly. Exactly. And so this ability to deal with missing views is a huge step towards making AI diagnostics more reliable and more useful in clinics.
Okay, so let's talk about how, they tested this MSMV-Swin. I mean, they didn't just create it and say, okay, we think it works, right?
No, of course not. They wanted to make sure it could, pass the test. And that's where the CBIS-DDSM dataset comes in.
Right.
It's like the gold standard dataset in breast cancer research. It's this huge collection of, mammogram images, but it also has, all the diagnoses and clinical information.
So it's a treasure trove of information, basically.
Yeah, it is. And so they took this huge data set and split it into two parts. They used the first part to train the AI, basically, showing it how to, spot patterns and make diagnoses. And then they used the second part, which the AI had never seen, to test how well it could diagnose new cases.
So like a final exam, basically.
Yes, exactly.
See if it could take what it learned and, apply it to new data.
Exactly. You want to make sure that the AI isn't just, memorizing the training data, but it can actually, figure things out with new cases.
Right, because every patient's different.
Exactly.
So how did MSMV-Swin do on this final exam?
Well, as we said before, the results were amazing. Not only did it outperform all of the other models, it was especially good at those cases with missing views.
Oh, wow. So even with missing information, it was still super accurate.
Yeah, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah. This is so cool. But it's important to remember, this is still research. It's not going to be in hospitals tomorrow.
Right, absolutely. Lots more work to be done before it's, ready for doctors to use every day, but
Yeah.
it's incredibly promising.
Yeah, it's a huge step in the right direction. It really shows how powerful AI can be in healthcare.
It does, and it shows how AI can work, with doctors, not replace them.
Right. It's not about replacing doctors. It's about giving doctors the tools to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting here. It's about helping doctors, helping patients.
Yeah, exactly. Helping people.
I can't wait to see where this goes. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and think about the big picture. We'll be back in part 3 to talk about what this means for, the future of breast cancer diagnosis and AI in healthcare as a whole.
Sounds good.
All right, so we spent like the last 2 parts of this deep dive really digging into this AI system for breast cancer diagnosis. This MSMV-Swin, it's designed to analyze mammograms, spot cancer, and even deal with those cases where we're like missing images. But now let's, zoom out a little and think about what this means for the future.
Yeah, good idea. It's time to, look at the big picture. Yeah. This research, it's not just a cool demo. This could actually change how we diagnose breast cancer and, honestly, healthcare in general.
So where do we go from here? How do we get this AI, out of the research lab and into hospitals?
Well, the first step is more testing. We have
Yeah.
to be absolutely sure that it's safe, reliable, and, that it works for everyone.
Right, like not just in a research setting.
Exactly. It has to work in the real world for
Yeah.
all kinds of patients. And we need to think about how this fits into, our healthcare system.
Yeah, how do we train doctors to use it? How do we make sure people can, actually get access to it?
Exactly. It's like we're building a new road, not just a fancy car. We need the whole infrastructure.
That's a good analogy.
And this technology it's always changing. This MSMV-Swin is just one example. We're going to see even better AI systems in the future. Systems that can analyze all kinds of medical data.
So this is like just the beginning.
I think so. We're at the start of a whole new era of, AI-powered medicine. And that's exciting, but it also comes with responsibility. We need to use this technology, wisely and ethically.
Right. We don't want to just like throw AI at every problem without thinking about, what could go wrong.
Exactly. We have to think about things like, patient privacy, data security, making sure these systems aren't biased.
And we don't want to dehumanize healthcare. It's still about people taking care of people.
Right. Technology should help with that, not replace it.
Exactly. It's about like human expertise and technology working together.
And if we do that right, we can really make a difference.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap things up. This has been an amazing deep dive, learning about AI and breast cancer. And honestly, it's given me a lot of hope for the future. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And be sure to stay tuned for more deep dives into the, cutting edge of science and technology.
See you next time.